Hello, I'm Reverend Rick, and it is my honor to be with you today. We really hope that this video is a blessing to you. And if it is, please consider making a donation. People watch our videos locally when they cannot necessarily come to church throughout the United States and the world. So please join us and click the link below and make a donation. Thank you, and let this be a blessing to you. Wow. You know, the thing is, you can't get too caught up because you got to get up here and talk about something and people think that you have at least thought about what you're going to say. But I would say, oh my God, it's amazing when things come to mind and people are doing things. But I do want to talk to people who have had a colorful life. If your life has been perfect and your journey throughout life has been without any problems whatsoever, you may not be interested in what I have to say. Because, you know, I think all of us have to reconcile principle 4, right? We are whole, perfect, and complete. And then you say, well, but you don't know what I just did, right? But the issue is we are whole, perfect, and complete. And I'm going there this morning. The dog's going there this morning. Yeah, go. Okay. Ernest Holmes, when he wrote We Believe, he said that God's Spirit is within all humanity, and each of us possesses a soul which is eternal, immortal, and continually expanding. We come to this earth born free, incarnated spirit, but I got my own soul. And my soul, my mind, my beliefs, my emotion, my experience is the expanding part. And I want to talk about that because I think we've all learned some amazing messages. And hopefully, no matter what road you have taken, you have found peace in the middle of that journey. Because I believe the whole soul's experience is about self-discovery. It's just trying to figure out where it came from, and it finds itself right back at point 1, spirit and soul in a body. Frequently I hear the statement, all things not only work together, but everything happens for a reason. And I have had to really think about that statement for the last couple of weeks. What do we mean when we say all things happen for a reason? If you're anything like me, I only make that statement when I just can't figure out what in the world is going on. Okay? I know, I trust, I believe, I know God is in everything, and I know, but I don't understand what just happened. So I think, well, it must happen for a reason. I think my parents would have said it differently. They would have used a line from an old gospel song which will say, we'll understand it better by and by. And maybe I have lived long enough to understand exactly what they were talking about. Well, amen, God. So, you know, as we course through life, we are propelled by motivation, right? As we journey through life, as our soul is discovering and expanding, we have this motivation. The Viennese psychologist said there are 3 areas of motivation. One, we're most familiar with, is Freud, and that we seek and our desire is for pleasure. 2, Adler's position said, no, really what we seek is power. And that is our motivation. But I think the 3rd is even more important. And it is the position of Victor, there you go. And he says is that no, what we seek is meaning. That our entire experience of our soul is to seek meaning. And when we seek meaning, we find freedom.
You want to pick up a handheld mic, Reverend Rick? I'm sorry.
I'll do whatever you tell me. Is that better? Yeah. Amen. So, Viktor Frankl says, what we really are seeking is meaning. And I think that's right, because I think once you find the meaning in the situation, even though you have been trusting in the experience, I think that is where we find internal freedom. Because that is what we're seeking, right? That internal peace. It's an inside job. And we're looking for that internal peace. And I think meaning is supreme. So, on Tuesday of this week, Jarvis Jay Masters will have his final trial on death row. He's been in jail for 30 years. And on Tuesday of this week, he will have his final experience before a judge. He's written a book about this experience called Finding Freedom. Okay? And so, but he's had an experience with God throughout this experience that I think is an interesting journey for the journey of the soul and looking for meaning. He went to jail, though, for a few petty thefts, and now he is on death row. He is one of 2,600 people on death row. 2% of them are women. 70% of them never completed high school, and 20% of them are assumed to have severe mental illness. Now, this is not a story about mass incarceration or capital punishment. So I will let Spirit answer that question for you. I want to talk about meaning. So Jarvis lived through the foster care system. He became a ward of the state at 7. His neighbors overheard a fight between his parents, who were drug dealers and addicted. And as you can imagine, they kept their kids very, very close to them and did not necessarily let them associate in the neighborhood very much. But there was this large fight between the parents, and a neighbor called the police. When the police got there, they took the 3 children and put them in foster care. Jarvis says his first experience in foster care was actually quite positive. They were a really loving couple, senior individuals, who were his foster parents. He said the first time he walked into their home was the first time he ever saw a light switch. The first time he saw many things in their home that just had not been a part of his experience. So they took him to church for the first time. So he goes to church, and of course they set him in the front row where the mothers of the church sit. Now, for those of you who aren't raised in African American church, that row and being a recognized mother in the church is supreme. Okay? It is supreme. So he said, the only thing that happened was I just got hugged by all of these full-bodied women. He said they were so soft and loving. He said, but as you can imagine, as the choir started going and the preacher started revving up and the mother started dancing down the aisle, he said it scared him to death and he wet himself. He said he had never seen anything like it. But it was a part of his journey, discovering himself in his experience. He continues on, and she becomes ill. His foster mother becomes ill, and they have no choice but to place him in another foster family. It was not a positive experience. He said it was abusive beyond belief. This family had their own children, and they had a number of foster children, and they were essentially working the state, caring for these children. And so all he dreamed about was getting out of there to get put in juvenile hall. He said juvenile hall had to be better than living in this house. And so he ends up at juvenile hall. Of course, he continues to run away, and he goes through a series of events, and he eventually ends up in a military school. And he said, that was hell. It was so abusive that it closed within the first year of it opening. Jarvis continues through this process of foster family and juvenile detention and the experience, and he continues on until he's 19 years of age. He hears that his foster mother, who had been so good to him, had recently died, just didn't understand it, and he goes through a series of petty thefts, and he's arrested and put in jail. But as I told you at the beginning of the story, he's on death row for 30 years. So how do you get from petty theft to death row? What happens is during his time in prison, a prison guard was murdered. And he was accused of sharpening the shank that killed the guard. He was prosecuted. But during the prosecution, he met a woman who was a private investigator who had broken her leg recently and had started meditating to just calm herself down. And she encouraged him to meditate so that he wouldn't overreact while he was in prison, going through the court case. So he starts meditating. She gives him a magazine. He continues to read about Buddhist practices. He writes a letter to a lama, and one of the students starts leading him through Buddhist initiation while he is in prison. He became such a dedicated student that the lama came to visit him and initiate him as the lama stood on one side of the bulletproof glass. Jarvis stood on the other. On the phone, they were talking to each other. But Jarvis says, I couldn't remember my cycle of mantras. But because he's in maximum security, he can't have very many things with him. Very few personal things he can have. So as he sits there, he recognizes he needs prayer beads. He needs a mala. So he has a magazine. He takes the staple out of the magazine, sharpens it, and pulls a thread out of his jeans. He takes a bottle of Tylenol and he strings his prayer beads with the Tylenol tablets. This guy is serious about finding freedom. Are we that serious? Could we meditate and find it, find peace, understand the responsibility we have to take for the experiences we have in life, even though we didn't create them? Because there's no resentment or punishment you can have on anyone else that's done anything to us. We have to continue to seek freedom. He uses the Tylenol tablets, and after 5 hours of stringing Tylenol tablets, he says, I had a headache. But I was out of Tylenol. So the interesting thing here is, isn't it the irony of it all? He is trading his former experience for a new experience of meditation, contemplation, and understanding the principles of Buddhism. And he said, finding it is where he found freedom. So my question to all of us is this. I don't think any of us have had such a significant experience. I'm not negating anybody's walk in life and what's happened to you, what's happened to me. We all have some horrific things probably that have happened to us. But this guy finds peace and contentment on death row. Can't imagine that there's any greater challenge than being on death row, knowing that you only have a short period of time before your life may be ended. Now, it's just interesting to me, right? That you can just go through this experience. It just seems like a lot of bad things have happened to him. And how does that all happen? He's probably not a very bad person. Actually, he's a very good writer. I enjoyed reading his books, but there is a lot of pain and suffering. But he says you cannot control what has happened to you. You cannot control where you are, but you can control what is in your heart as you experience And I think that's a lesson to us all. We cannot control everything that we have experienced. We can't control always where we are. But we can control how our heart experiences the situation. So my challenge for you this morning is this. Are you serious about your freedom? Are you serious? Are you willing to do what is necessary to come to peace with your past? You are whole, perfect, and complete, and your soul seems to be weaving its way through this evolutionary process, but it's looking for peace and freedom. Are we serious about finding it? He found it in meditation, and there are many different pathways to find it. But he has come to peace with his experience. So my challenge for us this morning is this. If you have not found peace, if you have not found the inner freedom that presents itself when you understand your journey in life and you have applied the meaning to it that is important to you, and you have not found, I ask you to decide to start that pathway today. There is nothing like inner peace, because in the middle of peace, no matter what is happening, you remain at peace, even on death row in prison. Don't forget your peace. Don't forfeit it. There is nothing like it. Use Jarvis's life as a comparison to our own. Every experience he had, he still was able to come to peace, take responsibility, and understand freedom is a work inside, not out. And so it is. Let's pray. Knowing this one power, this one presence moves in us, and it is us. It guides our pathway of our soul, and it leads us back to ourselves, fully free, at peace, full acceptance. So we're so appreciative of this. So as we leave this place, we know if we have not found this peace and freedom, we seek it intentionally starting today. And so it is.